Guys, welcome back to another video from Channel 622 from me, Dean. In this video, I'm just going to discuss what's happened in the Premier League weekend just gone as we go into another international break. Yay. Just starting off with the Norwich-Watford game. And oh my god, how Norwich have fallen from grace from beating Man City a couple of months ago. What's happened? Losing to the team that hasn't even won a game all season. Basically, they've been found out. After about 3 months, they've been found out from beating the Premier League champions to losing to bottom of the league. That's the Premier League for you. They play the high-pressing football, but clearly, the last few games, one pass has been cutting the high press out, eliminate the main strength of Norwich City, and they aren't that really strong at the back, and they've been exposed for it. They've been conceding on average 3 goals a game. The only clean sheet in recent history being against Bournemouth in a 0-0. It's not looking good for Norwich City. Unfortunately, because I like teams who get promoted. They play their own brand of football, their unique style. I always try to implore that type of mentality in the Premier League rather than just sitting back, a bit like Cardiff City. But I suppose you do what you've got to do to try survive in the Premier League, especially in the first couple of years, being back in the Premier League. But it's such a shame for Norwich. They started the season so well. The Pookie party was in full swing after scoring goals against Newcastle, Liverpool and Man City, of course. But it's just seemed to have fallen apart. And the manager, Farker, he seems such a nice guy, and he seems to be a reputable manager, but he's got to act fast. If they start falling off the pace, it won't end well. They clearly don't have a lot of money there to spend. They were the lowest spenders in summer. So that needs to change, arguably, because from a tactical point of view, they seem like they won't be changing too much going forward. So they just probably need better players in the system to try help themselves out. I hope they do. I really hope they do going forward. But we'll see. It'll be interesting to see. Moving on to Saturday's games. VAR, of course, coming in again on the Saturday with issues of the Spurs-Sheffield United game. When VAR was introduced, I said, it's going to cause issues. Of course it was going to cause issues. I am a backer of VAR. It's just not how it's currently being implemented in the Premier League. Offside was the only part I said at the start where it's black and white. It's either offside or it's not offside. But somehow we've managed to, well, the referees have managed to make that not true, with apparently the lines on the pitch not being drawn straight and the technology not being used properly. It's baffling. It really is baffling. One example being the Roberto Firmino goal against Aston Villa. Is a quote from the Premier League, his armpit being offside. Right, okay, his armpit. And then obviously Sheffield United, literally half his foot, if that, being offside. I know you could turn around and say, well, offside's offside. It is offside. But this probably isn't why VAR was brought in. VAR was brought in for clear and obvious errors. And you can argue, what is a clear and obvious error? I think going forward, and especially in regards to offside decisions, that's the main focus point at the moment with VAR, is the offside decisions, especially over the last couple of weeks, where there's got to be some sort of boundary as such, some sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, but where it's a clear and obvious error. There's got to be a part where he's level. Like, for example, the Firmino one, of course, you're going to say bias, Liverpool fan, but it's level. The Sheffield United one, it's level. The Son one against Leicester City with Spurs and Leicester, it's level. That there should be some sort of an area, grey area, where you should say it's level. I don't know how you're going to do it. It's such a difficult procedure to go forward. But the best league in the world needs to have the best system implemented, especially in regards to VAR. But anyway, in regards to the match with the Spurs game, people, after the Red Star games, both Red Star games, the 4-0, I think it was 4-0 at home, or 5-0, 4-0 or 5-0, and then they obviously win away by a similar scoreline. Both games have followed with a 1-1 draw. and neither performance has been amazing. Yes, you could argue it's Europe having an impact on their season. It's not. The cycle with Spurs seems to be at an end. It's a bit of a shame from. It's not a neutral point of view with me, obviously being a Liverpool fan, but from the outside looking in, it's a bit of a shame because I like Mauricio Pochettino. I highly rate him as a manager. Everywhere he's gone, he's improved the team. He's left there after entering there, wherever he's been, Southampton, Espanyol, of course, obviously Spurs now. He's gone in there, and when he leaves, it's a better team. Obviously, stuff off the pitch has affected Spurs in regards to transfers and whether any of the players have lost faith in the team. It's a difficult one for Spurs fans to take because after losing the Champions League final, of course, it was such a heartbreak for them, and obviously opposite for Liverpool fans. But they would have looked at Liverpool from last season where we lost in the Champions League, not last season, the season before when we lost to Real Madrid in the Champions League, and we bounced back. We brought in 4 signings, and we carried on. It's either rise or fall when you lose a Champions League final. You either carry on improving, invest in your team, move forward as a football club, or the players stop believing, they stop being motivated, they don't believe the team can do any more, and that seems what's happened with Spurs. The likes of Christian Eriksen, Jan Vertonghen, even Alderweireld, and possibly even Dele Alli have just stopped believing by the looks of it and whether the team could be successful. Obviously, Spurs haven't won. I'm not gloating here, of course, but haven't not been able to win a major trophy in some time. Maybe the old members of the squad have just stopped believing, and unfortunately, a lot of the old members of the squad are the better players. It'll be interesting to see how it develops further along. It's an awkward situation because you can always just say, sack the manager, but Mauricio Pochettino is an asset to Spurs. Even when they aren't playing well, he's still an asset. It might be his fault, it might be the players' fault, but are you going to get anybody better by Langershin in the mid-table? Probably not. We'll see how that develops. Couple of other points. Everton gained a vital victory against Southampton. It's looking the end for Ralph Hasenhüttl at Southampton. Just a quick note on Ralph Hasenhüttl. I like the man. I like it. He's a really good football manager. Is he given the tools at Southampton to do his job? In my opinion, no. I don't think he's been given the right tools to do his job. When he was at Red Bull Leipzig, he had one of the best forwards in Europe, and he still is one of the best strikers in Europe in Timo Werner. He had Naby Keita, who was currently at Liverpool. He employed a high pressing system, which was relatively unique with the 2-man midfield and the narrow forwards and the narrow wide midfielders, if that's such a thing, a narrow wide midfield, but clearly narrow cams as such. He employed that system and it was really effective. Southampton liked that, they brought him in, but I just don't think he's been given whether he hasn't been given the tools or he's just not brought the right players in. But going on their spending, it's inadequate, it's average at best, and they need to sort themselves out. It's a bit like the Norwich situation with them, where they've probably been found out as well. I watched them against Leicester. Of course, everyone watched them against Leicester. The 9-0. It wasn't that Leicester were brilliant. Leicester were really good, of course. They scored 9 goals. You got to beat what's in front of you. But Southampton were beyond abysmal. It was tragic. The wing backs weren't tracking back. The defence was static. The forwards just couldn't do anything. Of course, they had a red card. Of course you do. But when you have a red card, you have a red card. You sit in. You just protect. You just damage limitation. That's all it's about. They didn't even do that. They didn't apply the basics, and they got slaughtered for it. Anyway, they played against Everton, and by the sounds of it going on, some journalists that were at the game, of course, it wasn't quite as bad as the Leicester game, but it wasn't much better in terms of performance. They were poor, especially first half when they went 1-0 down. Just static at the back, and it's not looking great. And of course, the old meme about Liverpool taking Southampton's best players, that's a bit dead now, really, but I want Southampton to do well as well because I like Ralph Hasenhüttl. I like what Southampton stand for, but they just seem to have lost their way from the last few years. They've gone from the height of Pochettino, Ronald Koeman in terms of managers. I'm not saying Ralph Hasenhüttl's a terrible manager. Of course, I already said I like the man. He is a good manager. But in terms of players, you're going from Wanyama, Virgil van Dijk, Sadio Mane. Even Adam Lallana in his time was good at Southampton. Now they've gone down to Angus Gunn in goal. Danny Ings, as much as I like the guy, he wasn't a consistent goal scorer and never has been and probably never will be. Che Adams, a championship striker, who's just failed to live up to any potential he's had so far. Their best player, arguably, is James Ward-Prowse, and that says everything. Anyway, Everton, vital victory. Eases a bit of pressure off the manager, Marco Silva, who was looking likely to get the sack, and I think if he didn't get the 3 points, he probably would have been sacked. Obviously, no inside knowledge, just from the outside looking in, it was looking more and more likely. The pressure was telling, especially in his interviews, he was starting to feel it, I feel. But anyway, an important victory for Everton moving forward. Chelsea, early kickoff. Palace. Palace traditionally do well against Chelsea, especially away from home, and they've been doing well away in the Premier League this season. But in all honesty, before I even started watching the game, Chelsea were guaranteed winners for me. I think against mid-table sides and below, Chelsea are just pointing them to the sword. They're just consistent. What Lampard has done there already in such a short time is sensational. You know, even after that first game against Man United, when I thought 4-0, they played well. They just didn't take the chances, and they would, you know, they paid the price for it. So, but working with young players, not spending, well, they did spend, they bought Kovacic on a permanent, and of course they had Pulisic in from the January deal. But what he's done there, everyone's expectations were, oh, he's going to finish 7th, he's going to finish 8th, he'd be lucky to finish in Europe. They're looking favourites with Leicester just to get top 4 space. It's looking extremely likely. Even though I don't like Chelsea, I'm sorry to say, I'm not a fan of Chelsea. That's just a little bit of a modern rivalry with Liverpool. I admire him for the job he's doing, and that's concerning when you say Chelsea is actually becoming likeable because of the type of manager and the type of philosophy he's employing. Fair play to him. Tammy Abraham, fantastic. Gone from a championship striker to one of the Premier League's most informed players. Christian Pulisic. It was one of them where when he was linked to Liverpool, I was really excited because I liked him at Dortmund. And then naturally, when he joins a Premier League rival, he's like, yeah, if we wanted to, we would have got him. He's obviously not that good. Fair play to him. He's took a bit of time to adapt. He's doing well. Some of the movements, some of his ability on the ball is sensational. His hat-trick against Burnley, scoring against Palace. It's looking good for him, and it's looking good for Chelsea moving forward. Good luck to him for the rest of the season, especially how they got Man City next. Good luck to him in that game. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, moving on to Sunday's games. Wow. Sunday. Of course, headlined by Liverpool, Man City. But I'll just quickly start with the United game. It's a bit baffling with the Man United at the moment. If I'm an opposition manager and I'm going to Old Trafford or I'm playing Manchester United at home, the clear strength of Man United at the moment, every game they've won, especially from what I've watched, the games that they've won against defences that play a high line because they've got pace in Dan James, Martial and Rashford. They've got so much pace, they just run in behind and they're going to score goals. And I saw some the United Brighton highlights, and I'm thinking, don't play a high line. Sit back, catch them on the counter, frustrate them. And they played a high line, and it's guaranteed win. Norwich did the same. That's the way they score goals. But fair play to United. They played some good football. They're starting to recover a little bit. I'm not backing them to finish top 4. I'm not, because the quality is not quite there for me, even with the upkeep of form at the moment. But keep Solskjaer on the job. I can't complain, to be brutally honest. I'm not. I don't think Solskjaer is a great manager. I think he's the weakest manager in the top 7, top 8. I think there's a lot of other managers better than that. I think he's lucky to be in the United job. United as a club deserve to have someone like a Mauricio Pochettino or even the Ajax manager, Ten Hag. But keeps him in the job. I'm not going to go and play personally. But anyway, the main event was always the main event. Arguably the biggest game of the season so far in the Premier League, Liverpool Man City. It was a mixed one for Liverpool fans. You had half saying, "Oh, we're going to win, we're going to win," and the media and the bookies were pointing as a slight favourites. And then the other half, including myself, I was nervous because people were expecting us to win. I was thinking, if we don't, it's like, well, if Man City are full strength, what are we going to do? It started off with Man City pushing us high up, and I didn't think that was going to happen. I thought they were going to employ a similar tactic to last season in the 0-0 draw, where they know when we get at them, they tend to struggle. Their back line, even with Laporte, their back line is not great. But they come at us. They employ the tactic of attack as our best form of defence. If we get at them, score first, maybe they employ the tactics of the 0-0 from last season, where they sit in, control the midfield, limit our front three. But they come at us, and of course the big flashpoint of the game, of course, the handball. I've seen it 1,000 times now through Match of the Day, and of course a lot of stuff on Twitter. It is handball. Of course, it comes off Silva's hand, but apparently the Premier League didn't even take that into account. Fair enough. And going on that logic, it is handball. We got away with one. We really did get away with one. But the important thing is something that is learnt from the age of 5 in football. Play to the whistle. That is a big thing in football. Play to the whistle. Man City didn't. They carried on. They stopped. If Aguero played to the whistle, stopped. He could have squared it to Sterling for a one-on-one with Alisson, or even had a shot himself. He starts doing this naturally as you do. It's reactionary. And Liverpool carry on. I was screaming at the television, it's like, clear it, because initially I didn't see the handball. It was too far away, obviously. But I'm screaming, clear it, we get it down the left side, we get it to Sadio Mane. It results in Fabinho scoring an absolute sensational goal. Brilliant strike. I don't think Ederson would have saved it if he was playing. He would have had more of a chance of saving it because he is a better keeper than Claudio Bravo. But it was a sensational strike. We go 1-0 up, City are miffed, of course, naturally. It goes to VAR, it gets cleared. I don't know how. But anyway, moving on. Similar thing happens again. We're up the other end. Counter attack, we clear it on the counter. Sensational pass by Trent Alexander-Arnold on his weak foot, his left foot. Crossfield ball to Robertson. Bombs down the left. Head up, one look up. First time ball, hits it. Bounces in such a dangerous area between goalkeeper and last centre-back. Salah, beautiful finish with his head. Doesn't score many goals with his head, in fairness. Goes 2-0. People are saying, Ederson would say that it's a bit more likely than the first one, but I don't think he does. It's 2-0. I'm like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. I'm thinking 2-0 after 12 minutes. I'm like, it's a bit of an awkward position to be in. I know it sounds stupid being 2-0 up. It's like, what would you do? Why are you moaning? It's 2-0 up, but 2-0 is such a weird scoreline because if you concede, you start panicking, but it's 2-0, you think it's a bit comfortable. Anyway, the rest of that half plays out the way it did. We get to half time. I feel like I've run around for 45 minutes myself. Mentally, I'm shattered. You know, I take a 5-minute break, have a cup of tea. I'm like, breathe. We go into the second half. We start it the same way. We get at them. Henderson has been criticised from the outside and from Liverpool fans. I have at times. Of course I have. Everybody's criticised Henderson at some point. But fair play to him. This match, he was arguably, and one of our most important players, puts an absolutely beautiful cross in. Back post. Similar, obviously, with a bit more of a distance on the cross in comparison to the goal Mane scored last season against Chelsea from a cross from Henderson. But similar type of tactic, back post, Mane's there, diving header, Guardiola reference there. Good finish. That is the one Ederson would have saved. Bravo should do a lot better from a professional goalkeeper's point of view. He should do a lot better there. But it's 3-0. Game carries on. We take Henderson off. Understand he's been ill. He hasn't been training much. He comes off. We can tell the game gets affected. We start losing the midfield battle. We start getting tired. They start having more of an influence on the game. We start going defensive. You can tell we're getting tired, like I say, and they control the game. And I start getting edgy at this point. Even at 3-0, I start getting edgy because I know City can score 3 goals in 10 minutes. They're that good. They are that good. Anyway, 78th minute, Angelino, who's been much maligned for the whole game, struggling to control that side defensively, but fair play to him, gets to the bar, whips in a good cross. Not a very good clearance at times from Van Dijk. Questionable foul on Fabinho in the box, but nothing significant. Results in Bernardo Silva with a fantastic finish. Carries on. About 85th minute, that's where the flashpoint starts. The big headline that's come out today with the whole Raheem Sterling, Joe Gomez situation. Obviously mentioned that in a previous video. Not going to go into any more on that. If you want my views on that, just nip and watch that other video if you don't mind. Brilliant. But yeah, that's where Man City's frustration reaches boiling point. Guardiola sees another alleged handball by Trent. It definitely isn't this one. It's literally by his side. There's no chance. And he starts gesturing to everybody, 2 handball. Naturally, all the players in Man City and, of course, Pep Guardiola, it's reaching boiling point. The pressure's getting to him a little bit. We see it out. Nervy as hell. We see it out. It was a fantastic performance by Liverpool. We exploited their weaknesses. We limited their strengths. But Man City could have easily drew that game because Aguero has a couple of big chances throughout the game. Once again, doesn't score at Anfield. Maybe there is a curse on him. If only. But yeah, 12 games down. We're 8 points clear, 9 points clear of Man City. A lot of people say, oh, the league's over. You've won the league. It's like, can you tell me the last time someone's won the league after 12 games? It doesn't happen. We haven't, I hate to say it, back to 13-14. Last season wasn't a collapse. It wasn't. It's just we drew too many games. That's how good this Man City team are. You have to win all your games basically to guarantee it, which is near enough impossible anyway. But yeah, going back to 13-14, we collapsed near the end of the season. That was a collapse, the way it went about. It's looking good. I know we've got a couple of little injuries at the moment, the likes of Matip and Shaqiri, and then a couple of doubts of race at the start of the international break with Robbo and Mo Salah. Hopefully they clear up because we're going to need them for the absolute ridiculous part of the season we're coming up to. Well, anyway, that's for discussing future videos. That's my thoughts on the Premier League weekend just gone, week 12. Any thoughts if you agree with me? Brill? You don't? Let me know. For more videos, like, subscribe, share, all that wonderful stuff. See you next time.